Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're just going to remove the comment we made earlier on the display menu inside of the initializing function. Now what this is going to do is now display the menu. So if we run this again, we get this menu displayed instead of all of this here, and all of this can now be deleted because we're going to make it so that the actual game does it by itself now. And the first thing we're going to do is inside of the draw grid function, not the draw grid function, the menu choice function, the choice of 1 is equal to start new game, and that is what we're going to look at first. And to start new game, what we're going to do is we're just going to do self.start new game. Simple enough. And now we need to create this function. So above the menu, just do def start new game. We don't need to pass anything into this, and it's going to be a simple function which will reset all settings, which will create that function in a second. And then it's also going to reset current game, and that is the function we made earlier here. And finally, there we go. And finally, it's going to do one more thing, and that is set up the game. And it's as simple as that, and we don't need to return anything because it doesn't really need to have anything returned. Now what we have to do is we have to set up this reset all settings. So I'll go up to where the reset current game is, and I'll create a function just underneath of that, and this is going to be reset all settings. Now all the settings which we're going to reset are all these settings here, because if the character wins, then that will be turned to true, but then once they go back to the menu and decide that they want to play again, that will be kept at true currently, which obviously is bad because as soon as it's true, that means that the player has won, so they cannot play again until they restart the game or restart the application. So we need to reset all of these back to how they start, and that's going to be self.character alive is equal to true, self.monster awake is equal to false, self character 1 is equal to false, and self.monster awakened is equal to false as well. Now that's that function done. That's all we need from that function. And the final thing that we're going to do is we're going to create the setup game function. And so if we go down to start new game, and just near there just do setup game. Now we don't need to pass anything into this either. What we're going to do is we're just going to do self.place character, self.place monster, self.place trap, and self.place flask. And finally we're going to do self.draw grid. Now that is all working fine, or it will be working fine, and so if we refresh and do choice 1, you'll see that we get the grid loaded up and we have all of these icons where they should be. Now there's one thing that you remember here, and that is that we had this equal to true, and this has been overwritten here where we have monster awake equals to false. However, it's good practice to set this one to how it should be as well, so we'll put that back to false, and that is why we don't have the monster appearing within this area currently. Now there's one more thing that we're going to do within this video, and that is we're going to do a collision check, because once the character can start moving, which we can't do yet because we haven't coded it, but we will have done soon, we need to check that he's not ran into, say, the trap or the flask or the monster. If the character runs into the trap, then it awakens the monster and the monster can chase him. If the character runs into the monster eats him instantly, and that's game over. And if the character runs into the flask, then that is the game has been won. And so what we need to do is we need to code in that collision check. So I'm going to call it collision check, and that's just going to pass in self. Now this is going to be quite simple. Normally games will have more complex collision checks, but this, since it only is one thing moving at a time, it's quite simple to check. If you were to make this, for example, with multiple monsters and so on, it will be a lot more confusing, but that can be something that you can add yourself if you wish. I'm not going to be showing you how you do that, at least not in this course anyway. Maybe in an addition in the future, but definitely not in this course. So if we do self.coordinate check, coordinate collision, and the first one we're going to check is player, and the second one we're going to check is monster. So if the player has walked into the monster, then self.character alive is equal to false. Elif self.coordinate collision, and it's going to be whether the player has walked into the flask. So player flask. If the player has done that, then it's self.character 1 is equal to true. Now finally we've got elif, and the first one's going to be player and the next one's going to be trap. So we've got player and trap. Now this one is going to be slightly different to the other one. It's going to have an extra thing happening, because once the player has activated the trap is now useless. The monster is awake, and so what we need to do is have it so that the trap disappears out of view, and the easiest way of doing that is making it so it goes to a position which is guaranteed to not be on the grid. And so the position I chose was -1, -1. So we do self.monster awakened is equal to true, and self.trap position is equal to, and then we're just going to do -1, -1. Now with that done, what we need to do is return true on each of these, because these are going to be, with this function call is going to be within an if statement. So we need to tell it whether or not something has collided. If it has, then we need to check what has collided, which is what we will do in the next video.